Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on EDI, where we shine a light on key movements in the equity, diversity, and inclusion space. For this edition, we've got something a little different for you with very special guests. In April, we reported on an RFU conducted survey that brought to light levels of racial discrimination found across every area of elite rugby, and the RFU's promise to double down on efforts to eliminate this discrimination from the sport. We mentioned that this followed allegations of racism made by Luther Burrell during his time at Newcastle Falcons, which research showed to be true. So now we have none other than the Luther Burrell with us to talk about the impact of speaking out. Luther, hope you're well. How are you?
I'm very good, Jav. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, it's a pleasure. I guess we'll go straight into it. Discrimination against underrepresented communities is nothing new, and we tend to fall into the lapse of only really speaking out once it gets too much, let's say. What made you realise you'd reach your limit in this occasion?
Well, as you said, discrimination, prejudice to any individual is a serious issue. But when it comes to the underrepresented, the minorities, it has to be spoken about. And these infrastructures have to take this seriously. So I'm not so sure that I came to such a point where it was, this is enough. It was more, the time was right for me to speak on this occasion. And obviously, the circumstances were quite severe. For somebody to reference me as a slave, that almost was a nail in the coffin for me to have a voice and speak my truth. For years, I'd felt suppressed. And within this infrastructure, it's what people don't often realise. You become a product of your environment, essentially. So I've been in this infrastructure for a number of years. And this is predominantly white, it's predominantly privately educated, which is fine. I have nothing against any of that. However, when you're around these people day in, day out in different environment, or the same environment, day in, day out, you're naturally going to become a product of that. And I almost lost myself. I lost my sense of identity within that. And it wasn't until I gained certain experiences and I achieved certain things in my career where things actually really started to shine to me. I had so much a light bulb moment, shall we say. Now, there's a lot of ambiguity around this topic. There's nothing really clear, is there? And my experiences have almost been that. You know, is it a racist comment? Is it not? But for me, when I'm getting referenced as a slave, that was a nail in the coffin for me, because I have a responsibility to speak out so that this can be eradicated. So, yeah, I don't so much. I think there was a particular point where I felt, well, this is my moment. I just felt I'd undergone enough. I was at a certain point in my career where this is the impact that I need to have a change so the game can develop and we can create some generational change for the new generation coming through. And
speaking to that new generation, which you make reference there too, and for what we would hopefully like to see them embody, what could be some of the reluctance that may stop someone speaking out in the face of discrimination?
Yeah, look, well, I was very trepidatious, let's just say that. You know, I was nervous. Why? Because I'm a minority and I felt almost that I wasn't going to be believed. I'm going to be victimized. Am I going to be a villain? People are going to put an arm around me. Are people going to listen to what I'm saying? People of colour actually, when I did speak my truth and tell my story, still didn't show their support. And I'm talking within the infrastructure here, because you're almost moulded into a certain way of life and you can get lost, and people also do like to look after themselves within certain infrastructures. So for me, I was extremely trepidatious. I was worried because I felt perhaps people were not going to believe what I was saying. So the fact that I plucked the courage to speak out and then I was vindicated, it was fantastic. However, people are reluctant, and you can understand why. It's because we are a minority, and people almost feel like they will, speaking from experience, that they are perhaps the problem. Now, with myself, why would I withhold from speaking out? Well, because I'm the one being persecuted. However, it could quickly turn to me being the problem, and that is the issue that I didn't want to have. And you have a million thoughts running through your mind. However, you know, I can honestly say that it has been the most rewarding thing that I've done. Don't get me wrong; it's come with its problems, and it still does. However, actually getting over that mountain and plucking the courage to actually speak out and and having the wealth of support that I've had has been fantastic.
And when we look at speaking out and the impact it's had on the sport, what are the feelings you feel people should to carry when it comes to, all right, you've spoken out now, what's been some of the immediate reactions that you face since said speaking out moment?
Okay, so if you're referring back to July when I initially came out, the support was huge, to be honest. Don't get me wrong, you still have those people that are keyboard warriors and they want to pull you down and they want to almost tell you that you're, or just get on with it, you know, just man up, you know, just crack on. I'll tell you what I feel almost is, I feel reproached for having this conversation as if I'm doing it an injustice and I'm the problem for having this conversation. Sometimes I do have that feeling, which is unbelievable that we're in 2023 and the fact is that we're having this conversation on such a regular basis. So initially, my initial support from my immediate friends and family was amazing, but what really stood out to me was the RFU, to be honest. And I said, you know, 10 months ago that I was very thankful that they reached out to me. So when the article dropped at maybe 6:30 in the morning, I'd spoken to the chief executives, Tom Elube, the chair, chief executive of the Premiership Rugby. I'm speaking to the RPA Council, all in the space of half an hour. So they were quick. Of course, there is an element of damage control, but initially it was showing their support. How can we help? Sorry, you've had to go through this. Come and meet us. So I went down to have a meeting with them in Richmond. It's almost like a round table, and we had a discussion. Then they obviously did the investigation, which was slightly longer than what people expected. Now that's not a bad problem because it showed that the detail was going into their efforts to try and come to a serious conclusion. So thankfully King's Council got involved and I was vindicated. But what really stood out for me is their ability to actually be accountable, because not only did they investigate my case, they actually did an internal investigation with another company. So they came in and did another investigation. And they interviewed 600 people involved in the sport from all levels, from elite level to grassroots. And they found that 69% of these people had suffered some sort of discrimination or prejudice. So to me, that is a huge number. And they, without doubt, have held their hand up and said, we have a problem here. So now what I'm really intrigued in, Javan, is to really understand how they plan to implement change. What impact are they going to have? Because it's all well and good me having support and people putting an arm around me. But it's not about me, though. This whole thing has never been about me. You know, this is about me telling my story and being a potential gateway for others to tell their story. Because I've been inundated with messages from people from grassroots level, schools, and I'm not just talking the black community. I'm talking just underprivileged children from all different communities that have been involved in the game but don't feel welcome, don't feel a place of belonging. A feeling that was all too familiar with me in the early part of my career. So I'm really intrigued now as to what they plan to do. Where are they going to have impact? What changes are they going to make? Because the longer we keep having this conversation and the more people that have the courage to speak out, the greater change we're going to see. Just last week, another case had come out, a council member calling a volunteer the N-word in the Royal Box at Twickenham just last year. Now that to me is a bittersweet reminder of how much we have to do within this sport to create this change. From the very top, because we're talking about a council member, this is somebody that is decorated. You know, he's well established. He's been in the sport for a number of years. He's had a successful career, and now he's part of the council. He's making decisions that are going to pave the future of the sport. And so this council member is calling a volunteer the N-word, to quote unquote, do you know that they don't let N's into the raw box? That's severe. Now this is common knowledge because this just came out in the press a couple of days ago. So now he's had all of his rights removed and will never be allowed to step foot in Twickenham again. Is that really going to have impact on him? Okay, you're not going to be able to go and watch England ever again at Twickenham, and you're going to have your rights removed, etc. But you know, is that the lengths that it's going to go? Because I went on my socials and I spoke about this, and the community is actually quite angry with it. And I'm not just talking about our community. I'm talking the general public is quite angry. The fact that essentially this is all that is having to have done. So I'm not entirely sure what they should implement. You know, there needs to be a protocol, categorically needs to be a protocol for these incidents. So yeah, look, the sport has been amazing. I've digressed massively here, but the sport has been amazing, but we've just got such a long way to go. And the more people that come forward, the stronger case we're going to have, and the greater the change will be, and the greater the impact that we're going to have in the future.
Well, Luther, thank you for pouring out. May you continue to walk the walk you're walking, be a role model, and the bravery and the courage that you've demonstrated may be an example to us all. So time always is what we're up against, but thank you for your time, and appreciate you joining us for this month's episode.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Spotlight EDI. Thank you very much, Luther, for joining us. We'll return to our regular format for the next edition of Spotlight EDI. But if you're looking for another way to keep on top of what's going on in the EDI space, do get in touch to sign up to our community newsletter if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.